There is ransomware and crypto mining going on with Confluence servers.
Hey Chris, I heard you have a story about attacks on Confluence. Can you tell us about it?
So about 2 weeks ago, I got an alarm from a system we run that lets us know when there's a new vulnerability out that we haven't got detection for yet. So that was for Confluence, which is quite a popular piece of wiki software. We run it internally, lots of other people do.
So a lot of organizations use wikis to keep track of, information, collaborate, whatnot. And this particular malware affects the underlying software of those wiki systems.
But when we started investigating, we could see the source IP addresses, and we could also see the context of some of the attacks going on. It clearly was actually a real bunch of attacks all happening at the same kind of time. So then pivoting off of that, we could see that other users reporting exactly the same kind of exploits being delivered on the Confluence support forums. So people were talking about how their servers have been compromised, how the attackers are mining cryptocurrency, or in some cases have caused ransomware to run on their wiki systems, which is pretty bad, when in some of these systems they're quite key systems for those companies. And then looking through it too, it was clear that it wasn't just one person doing this. There was at least 4 or 5 different groups doing it just on that first day we started to see those attacks. And some of them were linked to other people who we're pretty sure who they are. Some of them seem to be quite new actors to the game.
Interesting. So can you tell us a little bit about the exploit that's being used?
Yeah, so it's just Confluence. I haven't looked at the detail of it, but its RTE goes over HTTP, so it's pretty easy to detect. There's a endpoint on Confluence servers which basically lets you run a command. The stuff that happens after that, I guess, is the really interesting thing. So we're seeing some of the attackers are then connecting manually to those machines. So in a couple of cases, I saw them starting reverse shells on Linux machines, so they just, as if they were directly on those boxes. On some of the Windows machines, they're installing something called Empire PowerShell, which gives them full control of those systems, and then they're manually going through and installing ransomware in that particular case.
Typically, this is the usual cycle of a bug gets found, gets used by attackers, gets patched.
Atlassian, that makes Confluence, they've released a patch. So if you run it locally, you need to get that run. If you haven't patched and it's internet exposed, you're probably already aware because you probably have a ransomware machine.
That's right, yeah, because ransomware doesn't bother to hide itself. It's very much, by the way, you need to pay us now. So, yeah. What do you think, Andy?
Oh, it's interesting. Quick question, actually. What's the delivery method of this malware?
The exploit, normally they write into cron, and then they set a task and then run later on to then download a script, normally off Pastebin, which then installs the actual malware. The actual exploit delivery itself, I think they're just running some Python scripts that send out a pre-packed HTTP payload. I think they're just ripping it straight off of GitHub. It's a Metasploit now as well, so everyone can do it.
There is actually a post on the Confluence support site that I found that shows you how to identify this malware, how to clean it up, which is a great move. It's not just fixing the bug, it's helping clean up the aftermath, which I think is the right move for a software vendor. So
what can you do to protect yourself as a user or an organization?
Well, most of the second phase stuff's really easy to detect. So the mining cryptocurrency, that's pretty easy to detect. For one thing, if you're looking at the machine, you can notice that your CPU utilization shoots way up because they're burning through your CPU cycles. If it's a key system, like a really important system, maybe we'll look at application whitelisting, where you can set it so if someone does manage to exploit this, it's unlikely they'd better install that second phase malware.
Yeah, I'd also look at PowerShell usage for particular users.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes so certain groups of employees shouldn't be using PowerShell ever.
Or like a service account that's just for running your Confluence server probably also shouldn't be running.
Most likely shouldn't be. So that's another thing to sort of key in on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Because of the new PowerShell, where you've got really good logging these days, Microsoft's done a great job at adding that. Obviously, you can restrict those scripts from running too. So yeah, that's definitely something to look out for on those key servers.
Execution policy.
Yeah.
Set it.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Just keep an eye on the patches that are available. These sorts of things make it to the news. It's time to do your due diligence and make sure you weren't affected by the bug.